out
Have
of
you
school.
always been a big reader?
No. Funny enough, it wasn't really until I got out of school that
Yeah.
I really started reading a lot more.
I think that's interesting too because I literally, my whole school time, I remember reading one book, The Call of the Wild by Jack London,
Yeah.
because it was about the wolf. That was literally the only book. I remember like trying to teach other people how not to read their books and still do book reports. Like I'd be like, okay, here's my system. You read the first 2 chapters, pick a couple in the middle, and the last 2, and you'll get the gist of the story. And I got my way through school doing that. Like that was my little system. And it wasn't until much later in life that I was like, no, I need to read. Like I enjoy reading and learning, and I think that's quite honestly where we miss a lot of it is reading is a punishment.
Mhm.
Learning is a punishment. For a lot of people
Yeah.
instead of being fun. And that's one thing I watch with our public schools is how much stuff is just taught at people but not taught to people. Right? Like you got to regurgitate these facts to pass this test, and then you move on to the next thing. Well, we weren't really focused on learning there. And so I think that's why as adults we sometimes reject learning because it's never been individual for us. It's never been about us. It's been about the information. So we put our energy other places.
Yeah, and there's many different types of ways to learn as well, right? You have lots of different learning styles. Some people may learn visually, some orally, some verbally, some physically. Sometimes it needs to be more of a social interaction learning, shadowing a person when most of our school systems stick to just a couple different ways. So I think that's what's exciting with what's going on with our education systems today. Like my girlfriend Courtney had the opportunity to teach a learning pod recently when schools were shut down here temporarily. But yeah, lots of education reform. But thankfully, we have the internet, we have libraries, we have so much information out there to where we can go and continuously learn with what we learn is the best ways for us to learn, right?
Yeah, see, I would challenge that a little bit because I agree with it. But if you're seeking learning, but you're only looking for things to confirm what you already believe to be true, you're not truly learning, right? You're just confirmation bias. I'm just looking to find more of what I already believe in. Where I challenge you is read some stuff that you don't necessarily either know, like you have no idea about, or that your first instinct is that you may not agree with it. Because then you're truly learning. Because maybe you've been wrong, and one of the questions I hear: why do adults stop learning after school? I think a lot of adults quit learning because they don't want to admit they're wrong. Right? Like how many of us have opinions or ideas that we've had for years and years and years? We haven't tested them in many years, yet we hold on to them as truths because we've always believed in them.
Yeah.
Right? We haven't evolved. And it's okay to be wrong. Right? Like people are going to be wrong all the time. But you shouldn't be wrong sitting stagnant. If you're going to be wrong, like learn and be like, oh, okay, I was wrong on that. Like be proactive and adjusting things. So I've been fascinated lately reading a lot of Native American history books, but written by Native Americans. Just because I was taught a certain set of history, and as we've progressed through the whole COVID stuff, now I really I don't know if what I taught was really even true anymore. So I've been reading the other, because I want to know what was their viewpoint of this. Battle of Little Bighorn, was it really a battle? You know what I mean? Like, because there's two sides, and like they've always said, history is always written by the winner. Well, I think as we get to be adults, it's important that we question what we've been taught, especially if it doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah. I love that. Challenging a firm belief is an excellent way to learn. Something that you truly believe is true, and then reading the opposition to that.
Yeah.
Like a great example would be even something ridiculous that you're like, oh, no way that's true. Like the flat earth concept, right? Maybe you challenge that of like, hey, everyone believes the earth is round, but let me read some of this, because ultimately let's say your belief is true. If you read and you're thorough of the opposition, you're going to be that much more well-rounded in your firm belief. But then if you're challenged, that's when it really gets interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's a great point, that a lot of people don't want to learn more because they don't want to be wrong about their existing beliefs.
Yeah, we hold them too close. Like, experiences are different. Life is different. Like we talked about in the other episodes, what you experienced at 18 and what you formulated your belief to be shouldn't be the same at 30, right? There should be growth in there.
Yeah.
But we got to seek it.
So what happened in your life, Jared, to where something shifted, something switched to where you actually started to seek learning and seek reading and you wanted to educate yourself more? What was it that happened that made you switch from looking at reading or learning as kind of a punishment to something that you wanted to do?
Well, I think for me, it's if I get stagnant, I'm bad for myself, right? Like, I'll be honest. If I'm not learning, if I'm not progressing, if I don't feel like I'm evolving, I have tendencies to do bad stuff to myself, right? Like whether it's bad habits, getting lazy. So I have to be learning. And, when I was younger, being a police officer, well, first, going in college, obviously you're learning. Then the military, there's a lot to learn. And then as a young police officer, there's a lot to learn. And then I hit a point where I felt like I had the police stuff down pretty well. I'd seen almost all the kinds of calls you could go on. So I started doing jiu-jitsu, right? So that's physical learning. And then I was like, okay, but I'm not doing anything from my mind. So then I started like, okay, I want to read books to help me become better. So I'm big in like nonfiction leadership, biographies. I don't read a lot of fiction. It's just not my preference. But studying people that were where I wanted to be and like looking for nuances. Okay, how did they get there? And is this what I'm capable of? Because, how much time do people sit and watch TV? And it doesn't improve you. It entertains you, but you're not learning anything. And I just didn't want to be status quo. I didn't want my best days to be from, when I was 22 to 29 and the rest of my life is downhill. I wanted to continue to progress. And so I started looking at reading more. But now I'm opposite of you. I don't do Audible books because I like the actual books. And it drives my wife nuts because I'll go buy a book. She's like, oh, my God, we bought another. Like, use your damn phone and just listen to the book. But it's just the way I like feeling it. And so that was it for me. I just didn't want to plateau. And there's only so much working out you can do in a day, right? And there's only so much, like reading is just quiet time. And it's time to silence your mind and your focus. And I think it's helped me be a better coach, just a better person, especially seeking contrary beliefs. That just fascinates me. And then I want to go back and challenge, like, why was I taught this? Like, here's what they say happened. Here's what you told me happened. And the truth's probably in the middle.
Yeah.
I question things, dude. I've always been a questioner. Like, it drives my wife nuts. And it probably drove my mom nuts. But, like, if you tell me to do something, I ask you why, and you have no why, there is no way in hell I'm doing it. and that's kind of knowledge, right? Just like you said earlier, even if you don't agree with flat earth, but you study, why do they believe this? Now you can be stronger in your why. Well, here's why I believe what I believe, and here's what they say, but here's why I don't think it works. That why piece is important, and why only comes from knowledge and preparation. What about you? How did it shift for you?
Two pretty profound moments in my life. One of them I shared on the podcast when I was 5 years old. My father comes from a Muslim family. My mother comes from a Catholic family. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, my father told me, he's like, hey, your mom and your abuelita and your abuelito and your whole Catholic side of the family is going to hell, right? And at 5 years old, I was like, no way God would send all of these good people to hell. Like, so that I became a big questioner of religion from a very early age. What is God? Why does God do these things? Why are we here? Why would we die? So very questioning there. And then when it came to education and more like personal development, self-development stuff, it wasn't until I got to college that I realized, oh man, I don't have all my friends from elementary school. I don't have my communities. I don't have my networks. I'm coming in again at kind of this bottom tier level. Nobody knows me, but I want to be a leader. I want to be popular. I want to, be social and hang out with all the cool people and the pretty girls and all that stuff. And so I joined a fraternity, and I realized I wanted to be a leader in the fraternity. So I became really, I would say, obsessed with how can I really influence all these people who I've never met. And I knew that I was, a half Mexican, half Arab kid and at Texas Tech University, West Texas School. Like, I was going to have to do extra work because I didn't come from an extremely wealthy family, all this stuff. I was going to have to prove everything. So I picked up what's today my favorite book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie. And I literally was like, I need to make friends and I need to be able to influence a lot of people so I can be in the position where I want to be. And this was after high school, right? In high school, you don't read books like Dale Carnegie, right? It's all boring. But when I picked up that book, it was like magic. The principles in there, I was like, oh my God, it was almost too easy for me to start making friends and influence people. And I'll just share like the three basic principles, or some of the basic principles, like don't criticize, condemn, or complain, right? So anytime anyone was talking shit or whatever, I refrain from that. Principle 2 is smile. I really was always smiling. And then one of the principles 3, become genuinely interested in other people and they're going to love you. So all these strangers will be, oh, what? Like, where are you from? Oh, you have that hobby, and tell me more. And really becoming interested in people. And before I knew it, I was the president of my fraternity, and just like people were like, this guy's awesome. And I really learned the fundamental techniques of handling people. And then that translated to other books. I was like, whoa, I can pick up a book to learn something that I want to do in the world. And then there are the tips and strategies to do it. And that started my hunger for books. So in college, I read books of pick up books on like dating women and stuff. Like,
what's the peacock theory or something?
Yeah, they have peacock theory, like lots of stuff like that. Like I want to have all the pretty girls. I want to be a leader. Books on working out. Arnold Schwarzenegger, pumping iron, learning bodybuilding, like stuff that I was into as a young man. There was books on there,